Okay. Got that going. Now we're just waiting for this over here. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Good morning. I hope you folks are doing well. I'm going to very early on apologize because I am on performance enhancing drugs. I am a doper, which is to say that I drank a mug of Theraflu before starting the show. I am better than I was, but not great yet. So just let's hope for the best. That's kind of where we're at. Got a bunch of people here in the chat. Southern tip of Texas. I'm planning to make a trip to Oshkosh for TMX. I've never been to one. Nice. Glad to hear it. Yes, if you didn't know, yesterday I posted the updated website finally for TMX and all that kind of stuff. So you can take a look at that. You can go to tabletopminions.org/TMX and check that stuff out. So Adepticon happened as is tradition. My wallet is lighter than I expected. Yeah, no, Jesse, I understand that. Same thing happened here. Good morning from a chilly Milwaukee, indeed. Good morning from Cleveland. Had a lot of fun playing Rain in Hell at the Adepticon gathering. Nice. Good to hear, Joseph. I appreciate you coming by. Hello from Edinburgh, Scotland. On my desk today is a Marvel Crisis Protocol taxi and a pot of enamel wash I'm using for panel lining. Nice. I voted nay on squats. If you look at the chat thing, there's a poll that I put up about yay or nay on squats. Pin Monkey says, I voted nay on squats. I don't have the time or money for a new army right now. I don't want a new army. I just want those models. If they look like that guy, I think the guy's cool looking. I'm going to use them for other games. I'm going to use them for Stargrave, Space Weirdos, Planet 28, etc. I've seen people online being like, he doesn't look very Games Workshop, or he doesn't, he's just not. And I'm like, I kind of like that. Like, I don't want him covered in skulls and weird iconography and stuff like that. I want them to look like actual, admittedly, compact humans who live in space and or whatever. And I don't know. So I like them, but I'm not going to use them for 40K or anything like that necessarily. But I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some. Feisty Crabman, how you doing? Let's see. Sleepy Washington, D.C. It was great seeing the Rain and Hell demo and getting to finally visit the Midwest. Hams is better than I had been led to believe. That is, I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure about the hams. I appreciate it as a Wisconsin lad. Everybody drank it when I was a kid, but I don't. It's not my jam. Let's just say that. I don't like PBR either, though, and a lot of people like that either, or too. I'm not a big beer drinker. Maybe we'll say that. But yeah, it was good to see people at the event. I appreciate that. We feel your snow and ice all the way down here in Florida. Wow, that's a bummer. Let's see here. Good morning from Texas. Seen an older video. Why you don't have to be good? It was as if you were talking directly to me. I needed that. Well, that's good to hear. Clearwater, Florida. Montreal. Oh, everything scrolled. Detroit, Michigan. Better than con COVID. Yeah, I took a test, a home test on like Wednesday, and it doesn't seem to be that. I'm pretty sure it's just like I've had aches, no fever. It's just stuffy head, cough on and off. Like I said, aches. It's getting better though. So I didn't stream on Friday on Twitch because my nose was running pretty much most of the day, and I didn't think you guys would want to, listen to me going like snorting all the time and stuff like that. Whilst, for 3 hours while trying to paint. So there's that. And then I didn't do any Viking game last night either. Just because I just didn't, I was still, and I went to bed early because I would have been up till at least midnight. And so it was a thing. There you go. Maybe it's a dumb question, but are the squats the 40K equivalent to fantasy dwarves like the Eldar are for elves? Yes. So back in the day when they made 40K originally, before that they had made, Warhammer Fantasy. That was what Warhammer originally was just fantasy. And then they're like, let's make a sci-fi version of it. And they just tried to transfer as many things over from the fantasy version over to the sci-fi version. So you had space elves, space dwarves, that kind of stuff. And then eventually they were like, well, and I don't even know why. I'm not still sure to this day sure why, but all of a sudden one day they were like, space elves are cool, but space dwarves are dumb. So they just got rid of them and kind of pretended as if they had never sort of existed. And then, I don't know, several years back, they sort of dipped their toe in the water by making some squats that you could get just on Forge World for Necromunda. And then they finally decided. Now, I got to be honest, I think it was a super... I enjoyed the fact that they announced it on New Year's and then it turned out it was real and not fake. I liked that. But otherwise, and I don't like, not New Year's, sorry, April Fools. And I don't like April Fools. So, yeah, but nonetheless. Also like the old biker squats from Mars vibe. Well, I mean, they could maybe get some bikers back. Although personally, I got to be honest, I've never understood the concept of having bikers in a fight. Like bikers, like in a fight, like, but people on bikes, like it doesn't, I've never understood how you get into hand-to-hand combat with somebody on a motorcycle. No, it's never made sense to me. Let's see here. Tabletop gaming events, what is that? Something from the before times? It's starting to come back. Good morning from a beautiful day in North Florida. Yay, squats, but I still don't want to play 40K. They might get me into Kill Team, though. I'm assuming they'll come up with Kill Team stats for them, I'm sure. I also bought into Infinity and the deal that Mantic was running to get rid of all the remaining Walking Dead stuff. Oh, yeah. At Adepticon, they had good deals on Walking Dead stuff because I'm assuming the license is done or something like that, so they're getting rid of that. I picked up... some terrain crates from Mantic. And I talked with Martin there for a while, who I hadn't seen in several years, and it was nice to see him. And I'll talk about the terrain crates. I'm going to be doing, I think, an Adepticon booty video. I'm going to figure out when. I'm not sure when. It might be this week for upcoming Friday. I'm not sure yet, though. But yeah. I didn't know Uncle Adam came from the land of sky blue waters. Waters? Yes, it's true. It's true. Hello from Romania. How you doing? Vienna, Austria. Howdy. Morning from London. Painting secret minis for VJ Morph. Ooh, that sounds fun. Big weekend of gigs here in Sydney, but the weekend is over, so taking today for myself. Gonna paint and play some solo games. Nice. Morning from Mexico. Very excited to hear about your war stories from Adepticon. Were there war stories? I didn't actually... Did I play any games? Well, I mean, I helped run Rain and Hell games on Friday night. I didn't play any games, I don't think. I was hoping to maybe do a demo or two, but it just never worked out. I was constantly always kind of talking to people, and I had a bunch of meetings and stuff like that. I played laser tag on Thursday night. Games Workshop invited me and a bunch of other folks to an event on Thursday night, and they showed us some stuff coming up that we can't talk about yet. And there were cocktails, or well, I had a beer. It was Bud Light. Anyway, and then after that, then the people who wanted to could go and try out the Kill Team laser tag thing, which I did. It was fine. I don't know. So I had gone out to dinner earlier that night with the folks from Monument Hobbies. It was me, Ninjon, Vince, Sam. I think that was all. And we went out to one of those places with the Brazilian steak places where they come by with the big kind of stick with all the meat stuck on it, and they cut pieces off for you, and they just keep doing that until you are like, no, please. And so I was filled with meat, and then now it's time for laser tag, which is generally not great, but the very first rule in laser tag from Games Workshop is there's no running, which then makes it the perfect game in my opinion. And but yeah, it's just, you got these big guns, some of them that look like las guns, like guard las guns, and the other ones look like orc guns, and they kind of shoot differently, and you just sort of run around in the dark and kind of it's okay. I don't know, it's not something I would do more than once, let's say that, for sure. So anyway, yeah, that was fun. That was Thursday night, yeah. That was like, again, like that was, it was an interesting thing, but it was one of the, I think, honestly, I mean, it's not obviously a tabletop game, but it was a game that I played, so I guess I got that going for me. I would love if your new Space Hulk maybe coming soon prediction will come true. Squats versus Tyranids. GW Video had Space Hulk theme. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be interesting to see, for them to actually make a change to Space Hulk, to make it not Terminators versus Tyranids, because it's always been Terminators versus Tyranids, but that's interesting. Ratlings were basically hobbits. No, I agree. I agree. Will you be going to Nova? Yes, I will be. I'm not sure whether I'll be doing any teaching or anything there, or if I'm just attending. But I have my plane ticket, so I'm ready to go. Waiting on some paints to work on Zona Alpha creeps and mutants. Nice. I like creeps and mutants. Hello from Ireland. Howdy. Good morning from Idaho. Not Idaho. Sorry, I read that wrong. Ohio, the land of liminal weather. We are not the land of liminal weather. It's nice and sunny today, but it's not particularly, it's still only just barely over freezing. 52 miniatures, how you doing? Good to see you. Hope you are well as well. I am somewhat well. My eye is currently leaking a little bit, so I'm going to just dab at it real quickly here. Good morning from Northern California. Painting my new Necromunda cops. Nice. Good morning from Central Florida. I'm really pumped for the Warcrow, the upcoming fantasy range from Corvus Belli. It will be full plastic. Yes. So when I was at Adepticon, I had a good long chat with Carlos, who is the president, owner, I'm not sure, one of the two, big boss for Corvus Belli. I was kind of standing by their booth and just shooting some B-roll. And he came over, and we've chatted multiple times before. So I hadn't seen him in several years, obviously. And so he came over, and we chatted for a good long time. And he was very complimentary. Like, he really enjoys like the work I put into the videos, the look and the this and that and all that kind of stuff, and the audio. And so that was very nice of him. And then I asked him a bunch of questions about Warcrow, and he can't obviously say a lot about it except that it's not going to be just like, Infinity with, like, elves and such. It's going to be a different thing, but it is going to be, from what it sounds like, skirmish, which I'm like, okay, cool. And, and fantasy stuff, but it's going to be kind of their take on fantasy, but it's not going to be crazy, really super weird high fantasy. I think it's going to be a little bit more standard, which is fine. People enjoy that. And then also, the fact that it's going to be plastics, it's going to be done, from what I understand, predominantly in Seocast, which I also talked with the folks from Seocast while I was at Adepticon. And I've talked about Seocast in the past. It's this new kind of process for being able to make plastic miniatures without having to make metal molds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very interested in seeing smaller companies getting on board with that. I know that Corvus Belli is... Warlord is. There's a bunch of different companies actually in the back of this kind of pamphlet that they made saying these are companies that are currently already, Monster Fight Club, companies like that. And the quality is real great. So Seocast, I think, is very interesting. And I'm glad to see that they're going to be getting into that as well with the Warcrow stuff. Plus, I like the name. Warcrow is pretty cool. I like crows. Let's see here. Greece from Puerto Rico. Hi from the UK. Seoul, Korea. How you doing? Settling the two Underworlds warbands today, Tzeentch and Slaves to Darkness. Nice. Are you doing that for Underworlds, or are you doing it for Warcry? You could use them for both. I begged GW for the new Eldar models for years. My wallet is crying from the output. I want a slower release for squats, though. Well, I mean, from what we were being told, they're not going to come out till the end of the year, or near the end of the year. Oops. So you've got some time to save up, is the idea, I guess. Okay. I need to just pause for a second because my nose is starting to run a little bit, so I'll be back in just a mo. Just hang on a little bit there. All right. So, it'll be what it'll be, unfortunately. I hate that standard fantasy is a thing. I think that standard fantasy is very frequently based off of your Tolkien type stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like where it sort of, I don't want to say that's where it started, but kind of in that direction. Um, because there are plenty of folks out there who do fantasy stuff as well, who are like, well, we're going to reinvent fantasy. And that's cool. And there are people out there who dig it, but there's also a lot of people out there like, yeah, but what about dwarves? Or what about the elves, though? You know what I mean? And like, people like what they like. And there are obviously people out there who are outliers who like weird things. I like weird things quite frequently. You know, they'll make a new flavor of ice cream. It'll be like, this is my favorite flavor. And then they'll discontinue it because me and 5 other people are the only people that ever buy it. You know, that kind of thing. So that kind of thing is probably when we're talking about standard fantasy versus, say, non-standard fantasy. I don't know. I bought a Tech Marine and Servitors, and they were my first resin miniatures. Not impressed. Took ages to actually get to stick together with super glue. I think that resin, like normal resin, is difficult sometimes. Well, I don't know. The resin stuff that I've always gotten from Anvil Industry, I've always been super happy with. It's always glued together easy. Everything's been great. The stuff that the Seocast is made from is not resin. It's a plastic. It's a thermoplastic, and like I've never even heard it referred to as Restic, which sometimes companies will refer to as their resin plastic or whatever. But this stuff is pretty impressive. And the new stuff they released, they announced at Adepticon, I think on Thursday or Friday, they announced this stuff called their new material, which is called CO Hard. And it's an even newer type of plastic they'll be able to use the process with. And then within 24 hours after you've molded it, you can file and sand on it, and it will work basically like kind of regular, plastics that we're used to in this industry, which is very interesting. I have a sample of it, not on me right now. It was in my pocket for basically all of Adepticon. It was a little coin, and I do have I have a model that I'm going to paint on Twitch eventually. That is from 52. No, what's it called? 52 miniatures, level 52. No, 52. Broken Anvil. I forget who the sculptor is, but it's 52 something or other. And Broken Anvil is the company that made it. And it's this cool skeleton guy with he's wearing a cloak and he's got like double daggers and stuff. And so that's a Seocast model. So let's see here. Every time I hear Warcrow, my brain wants to autocorrect it to Warcry. Yeah, I understand that, definitely. I scored a bunch of older Eldar models this weekend, even a few flying casts that weren't totally terrible. I mean, that happens from time to time. Just assembling my Nachmund terrain. Hello, how you doing? Favorite non-Tolkien fantasy miniature range: Burrows and Badgers from Oathsworn. Yeah, that's cool. I can understand that. Banana pudding ice cream from Publix discontinued. Yeah, exactly. That type of stuff. You find like a flavor, you're like, oh, this is awesome. You're the only person who likes that. I discovered you need to wash those Catalyst mech models for better paint adhesion. Another hard-earned lesson. Really? So like the plastic models from Catalyst for for BattleTech, those need to be washed? See, I don't generally ever wash plastic models. I mean, resin, yes, but never plastic. But that's interesting to hear. Bones from Reaper aren't CO, are they? No. Well, first of all, they're generally a little bit bendier. I think Reaper's going to get involved. If I remember correctly, Reaper's one of the companies that was in the list of these are companies that are already signed up and working with Seocast, but I don't know that. That's a good question. The downside to Seocast, and it's not a huge downside, but it is a bit of a downside, is that it is harder to crank out lots and lots and lots of models. So I would be very surprised if the folks at Reaper, especially when they do another Kickstarter, I don't think they would want to be able to do that Kickstarter in Seocast because, like, if you're like, hey, I need to make, excuse me, I need to make 3,000 of this model. I need to make 4,000 of this model. Okay, cool. That'll take you a couple days or whatever, but you can do it. It's when you're like, I need to make 30,000 of this model. That's when you're like, it's probably better for us to actually do that the normal way. And I'm sure that's what the folks over at Reaper do. But to be honest with you, I don't know why then they use that super crazy cheap bendy plastic. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know a ton about their business model, to be honest with you. So I don't know how that works. But it doesn't seem like See, they're saying that Robert Dean's saying that the Bones USA stuff is Seocast, but the rest of Bones are not. That I could see because it is that darker gray and it's a bit of a harder material. But like the white stuff, no, that's not Seocast because it's bendy, and I think they're making a whole buttload of those. That's a technical term there. Will you be partaking in the squat revival? Well, I mean, like I'm interested in buying some of the models because I want to use them for other games, but I don't know what else you mean by partaking. If you just mean, am I going to buy some squats when they come out? Probably. I mean, unless this one model here, where is he? Unless this guy here is like a one-off and everybody else looks weird, then, well, I'll try to get a hold of this guy, I guess. But yeah, in general, my plan is to probably get some of these guys just because I want to be able to use them in, like I said, Stargrave, Space Weirdos, Planet 28, etc. Not a whole bunch of them, but some of them, you know, like if I could get like a box and then kind of tweak a couple, like I could also put weird heads on them too. That'd be sort of interesting. I have a lot more heads now. After coming back from Adepticon, I bought a bunch of different weird heads. There's a lot of different cool things that a person could do with these models, at least in my opinion. And so yeah, that's kind of the plan. But as far as like making a whole new army or anything like that, no, I do not see that happening. I'm not super interested in going down that road these days as far as like army style games. And I'm not even against like any particular company or anything like that. I'm just like, I want to stick with like the more, you know, skirmishy style games. So yeah. These guys from Cav are already producing some stuff with Seocast. Nice. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to ask you, since we got the new squats announced, do you think it's a good that GW brings out new armies despite a number of old ones in dire need of a refresh? Good is a relative term. Do you think it's good? I think that they make stuff that they know is going to sell. So when they're like, oh, hey, this model is really old and it, you know, some people are unhappy about it, they've probably looked at it and gone, it is not worth our, it doesn't make us any more money to do this. You know what I mean? Like that's honestly the case. And it sounds horrible, I'm sure, but that's capitalism, you know? Yeah, if they're not making a model, it is generally because it's not going to make them as much money as making another model would. So they finally must have gotten to the point where they decided, you know what, people will buy the new avatar of Kane. And so let's spend the money to design and produce and make the molds and all that jazz, and then sell that kit, and then we'll make, you know, this much profit. And, you know, but up until that point, the tipping point had not gotten. So yeah, they must make a lot of, I'm assuming, I don't know if they're actually going as far as to figure out like actual sales numbers directly that way. I don't know how they're doing it, but they are coming to a point where they're like, look, we know this is an old model. If we made new ones, we would sell this many, which isn't worth it. Whereas this model, you know, squats, oh geez, we might sell a whole buttload of those. That's fine. You know, I mean, that's, yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. The weirdest part to me with that dwarf is the individual armored toe look. It's like those shoes where your toes go into the, it's like those. He's a fan of those things, I'm assuming. Some people also online were like, I don't understand why his feet are so small. Like he should like he's a dwarf. As he gets closer to the ground, he should just get wider and wider, and his boots should be 3 times the size of his entire body or whatever. And I get that. It makes him look more like a space marine. I like what he's doing there. I don't know why. I think it looks cool. I'm not sure why. The feet don't bother me at all. I know that some people do not like that, but you know, again, that's why I had you know, it's currently 77% of the people saying yay to squats as opposed to nay. So there's that. Do you think a 1,145 point Necron army would last against a 2,000 point army? I am not a good person to ask, and also second answer, probably not. Yeah, that I don't know. I mean, it seems like you're giving yourself a heck of a handicap by leaving nearly 900 points on the table. Well, not on the table actually, but back home, I guess. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a good. I don't know. Desperately needs a refresh means different things to different people. I mean, some people need a new Primaris Lieutenant every month. It's true. you paint one Primaris Lieutenant and then you're out of them, and then it's like doom and gloom and it's sadness, and then eventually they come out with another one, and then it's sunshine and puppies and whatnot, or whatever. But I can understand that. Catalyst stuff definitely needs a good bath. I'm waiting for the squats and exo armor, then I'll decide. Huh. I wonder why. Because I generally don't ever wash. Like, I wash what the stuff, resin. I wash resin pretty frequently. Pretty much any time I'm going to work on a resin anything, I get a little bowl of water that's like warm, and I add like one little drop of like dishwashing soap to it and slosh it around. And then I have an old toothbrush that I use, and I scrub the pieces, and then I rinse them off underneath the sink, and I let them sit on a piece of paper towel on the kitchen counter for like, I don't know, a couple hours, until my wife is like, why are those here? I'm like, eh. And then I will take them downstairs and then start gluing them together and work on them that way. But I've never done that with plastics. I've never had the issue, I guess, with plastics either, so maybe that's a thing. But I own some Catalyst models. I do own some of the Battletech models. I bought some at Gen Con, and then I've bought some more recently from my local shop, just because I think I might do a Battletech painting video, and I figured it was a good idea to have multiples just in case I have to do it twice or show different possibilities, or I don't know what. Anyway, but I've never had to wash plastics before. That's very weird. Scale modeling websites often seem to recommend washing sprues before building and painting kits, so presumably even injection molding plastics may involve mold release agents in some cases. The thing that I thought was interesting is I did not see the CEO from Seocast use any kind of release agent when we made the thing that so I stopped by the Seocast booth at Adepticon, and Farron, it's either Farron or Ferran. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, unfortunately. I can spell it. But we had met the week previously at the Reno Game Manufacturers Association trade show. And so he's like, hey, would you like to make a model? And I was like, what? And he's like, here. And he grabs like 2 pieces of a mold that has these coins. And then he just kind of puts it together, and he cleared a little extra plastic out of it, then put it together while we're talking, and he put it in this machine, and he pushed like a preset button for like the coin thing, and then he's like, press that big green button. I pressed the big green button, and the thing made a bunch of noise, and about 48 seconds later, he took the mold out, peeled it apart, and then there were the coins. It was very fast. He says that he can do about 30 to 40 impressions per hour. So, and it made 8 coins, and then he just peeled it off, and it was very warm, and he gave it to me and stuff like that. And he said that was the new material. And like I said, within 24 hours, he's like, you can file on it and sand on it and everything like that and all that. So it's really cool. And if you watched, I did actually stream on Twitch Monday, because I didn't start feeling lousy until Tuesday night. But on Monday I did, and I had that coin, and I was talking about it. So if you're watching that, if you go back and watch the VOD, early on at one point in that recording, I took because I've got a macro lens on my camera that I use to, the down pointing camera for when I'm filming or streaming. But I moved that lens, that coin, like as close to the lens as possible, and you can see there's like an American flag kind of on one side, and it has these tiny little dots. But when I got that macro, you could see that each of those dots is actually a little tiny 5-pointed star, which is pretty cool. Like, that's how much detail you can get out of this, which was surprising. So, yeah, it was very interesting stuff. But like I said, I don't remember him like sprinkling anything on the mold or anything like that. So I don't know. It's also very interesting. Clean all my models in IPA before painting, not beer. Oh, not beer. Okay, I gotcha. Bought a few Battletech minis and it seems sort of shiny. They got to wash just in case. Huh, interesting. You only need to apply mold release every few processes, not every time. So maybe that's what it was. I can understand that. Hey, Christopher, how you doing? Great seeing you too at Adepticon. Next up is TMX. Absolutely. Ordinarily, I don't need to wash plastic models before painting, but those Catalyst models are particularly oily, though I have not tried enamel paints on them, only acrylics that I thin with water. That's also a good question. Would that be a difference between acrylics and enamels? That's a good question. How is Adepticon compared to previous years? Does it seem like it has a healthy future? I think so, yeah. Like, it seemed as if there were slightly fewer people there, but not like that many fewer. Now, that being said, it was also spread across 2 hotels. So this year, and I don't know if this is due to growth or if this was them like just like trying to spread people out a little bit because it's still kind of pandemic-y out there. But all the historical stuff was at a different hotel. That was like, I don't know, not super far away, half mile maybe. I'm not sure. There was a shuttle that ran in between the two for most of the day, or most of each day. But yeah, all the historical stuff, so your bolt actions, your flames of war, your saga, that kind of stuff, that was all at the other hotel. And then the one we were in, the Renaissance, was basically running 40K and Age of Sigmar, and the Marvel game was big, and Star Wars Legion had a decent sized thing, and it was all the different tournaments that were going on. There's lots of Infinity, like everything. There's all kinds of tournaments going on there. The vendor hall was a little bigger this year. There were more vendors, which was nice too. So there was that. And the Golden Demon upstairs was a great setup because it was open 24 hours. So you could, I was standing up by the Golden Demon. Like, I went up to go look at the Golden Demon one night to sit there and just like really start looking at stuff. And it was probably a little after midnight when I got there, and there was lots of people walking around looking at stuff and having conversations. And I actually, as it turned out, did not get to really do it. It was not for any bad reason. It was just, I ran into my friend Danny from 3D printed tabletop, that YouTube channel, if you've seen that. And I haven't seen him in a couple of years either. And so we caught up and talked for a good long time. I don't know, at least an hour, if not longer. So it was really good to see him as well. And yeah, we just had a really good time. It was good. But that was the cool thing, because back in the day, when it was Crystal Brush, the Crystal Brush stuff was in the expo hall, which would close at 6. So that was it. Like at 6 o'clock, you couldn't look at the stuff anymore. And the fact that they moved Golden Demon upstairs, you can, because there's a few things that stay open all night. One is the Golden Demon area, and they have like a security guard there, so no one tries to steal anything. And then there's also the Bit Sky. So there's a store that's in the Toledo area. I forget what it's called, the Game Box, something like that. Anyway, that guy comes every year and brings all of his different bits and all that kind of stuff. So they keep it staffed 24 hours. So if 4 o'clock in the morning, you can wake up, come downstairs, and just start pawing through a big old bin full of old Eldar parts or something like that. I don't know. And then buy things. I've done that in the past this year, but this year I did not do that. So I did not buy any bits this year at all. When I got my Catalyst figures, there was a strong chemical smell. That's why I threw them in soapy water immediately. Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate the advice, because I will definitely make sure to do that, and then put that in the video too, because other people should know that as well. Do you think it would be better for diversity if the faction and historical were mixed? I mean, that's the way it's always been in the past. But I think this year they did it that way because they had to do something, because they're running out of space. And so they were like, well, we can put, because here's the thing is, there are a good deal, not a lot, but there are a good deal of folks. Well, let's take that back. I think that there are a lot of folks out there that play historicals that don't play much of anything else. So they don't, having them kind of in their own area is fine. There are certainly some people, like I know a guy who is really big into Saga and really big into Infinity. So, that person in that situation is, not good. Unfortunately, I didn't see him all weekend. I'm assuming he was probably overplaying Saga most of the time. So there was that. But in general, I think that the majority of the folks either play the more fantastical stuff or they play the more, historical stuff. So I can see the differentiation there, as far as like saying, let's put historicals over here. And they had a bar, and they were doing fine, I'm sure. So, but it would be great to be able to put them together, but it's also a situation of there's only so much space. So I think that's the decision that was made. I'd love to see an anime-inspired tabletop game. Imagine a game based on Tanya the Evil. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Tanya the Evil. Anime-inspired, I mean, I don't know. Infinity's a little anime-inspired. Not necessarily like the big eyes and the, schoolgirls and stuff like that. But, like, it has definitely got a mecha sort of vibe to some degree, and that kind of thing. I can definitely see that. Let's see here. What other settings do you think could work for war games? Oh, all kinds of different things. That's a good question. I've been experimenting with some Bones USA Seocast and cannot use a scraping motion with a knife, so I've been using 300 grit sanding sticks, currently on the hunt for 600 grit diamond file. I'm wondering if the new CO hard stuff is kind of the answer to that. You know what I mean? The Game Room. Is that the name of the place in Toledo? Gotcha. Let's see here. 40K people are talking about running Crusade, and all of the competition players are talking about building super fluffy lists. The rest of us are going, oh, yes, for sure, totally. Going through a tough breakup right now, and those squat models can't show up soon enough. Well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. I think from what they've said in the thing, they're saying later this year, so who knows when that could be. Relic Knights is super anime. That's true too. I don't know if you can find it anymore. If you do, it's probably old stock. I don't know if they're still making it, but you're right. That is definitely had an anime vibe to it as well. Relic Knights. New stuff always fun. Will I get it? Nope. After I pried my eyes open from Planet 28 and other agnostic games, I only care about models, not games. Found the old Mutant Chronicles minis and book. Nice. Well, like really old Mutant Chronicles would work great for most of those games. The Mutant Chronicles that they tried to put out maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, something like that, they were 54 millimeters. So they were like twice as big as your standard 28 millimeter stuff. And that was a weird choice. They decided, hey, we're going to make this pre-painted 54 millimeter game. And yeah, it didn't sell. No, that was a fantasy flight. They did make a change at the last minute because originally they were planning on making it random pack, like HeroClix. So I'd heard stories that they basically just paid a bunch of guys or people in general, whatever. I don't know if they were, I'd heard college kids, but I don't know. They basically just paid a bunch of college kids, from what I'd heard, to tear apart the packaging because they had already packaged all these models randomly. They teared apart the packaging. Then they had to take all the models and put them in like groups because they were random pack, and then repackage them in new packaging so that when you bought Mutant Chronicles, they had like a clear panel in the front of the box so you could see, oh, I'm buying these guys. But yeah, that was a last minute thing. Like they were already packaged and ready to go random pack, and then from what I have heard, last minute they were like, oh, people aren't going to like that, and then they got rid of the random pack idea and then had to repackage them all by hand and stuff like that. And then collectively the world yawned and was like, oh yeah, that. And that was like, it did not sell. Like not my local shop here in town, but the local shop a couple towns over, I think he still has a bunch of those on his shelf, and it's like, half off, and people are like, why? Like they were not, those newer those bigger models were not great to begin with, and they were bigger than everything else that you ever have. So like, there's something to be said about sticking with the right scale. You know what I mean? Like, Marvel has been able to pull it off, but it's also not a huge difference. The Marvel game is 40 millimeter. When you think about how GW is 28 to 32, depending on what day of the week it is, and most other games are 28-ish, Marvel's bigger than everybody else. But they've also started producing a ton of their own terrain as well. So that was also a smart move. But still, even if you use 40 millimeter guys on 28 millimeter terrain, they're superheroes. They should look big and bulky and stuff, and that's fine. It works out cool. As soon as you're like, you know what, let's go 54 millimeter. That's never worked in the past, and still to this day, not so much. What's his name? Inquisitor. The GW put out in the early 2000s. That was a 54 millimeter game. People didn't like that either. So, Obviously, there's people out there. There's a small subset of people who seem to like 15 millimeter. There's even a smaller subset. Well, not smaller subset. 15 millimeters at maybe the smaller subset. There are people out there who dig like 6 millimeter, which is basically more micro armor or battle tech and stuff like that. But 28 millimeter / 32 millimeter seems to be the sweet spot. So if you're starting to decide on a new game, and you're like, let's make it, I don't know, 46.5 millimeter scale. That's, you think again, I think is probably a good idea. Unless you don't want to sell it, then that's fine too. But yeah, I think it's a smart idea to try to stick with a normal scale, partially just because then people will look at the models that match their other models and the terrain and go, cool, now I don't have to build all new terrain. But with Inquisitor and the Mutant Chronicles weird game that Fantasy Flight put out, yeah, you had to come up with new terrain because otherwise everyone looked like giants, like way more than even like Marvel games. So there's that. There was a definitive lack of fish people at Adepticon this year. That's probably also true. Adam, did you check out Black Site Studio stuff? I did. I bought some of their models. I did not buy any of their games, but I bought some of their models for use and other stuff. Did I buy a terrain? I didn't, strangely enough. There was a bunch of the terrain there, but I didn't buy any. I did buy some models, though, so I'll talk about that when I do my Adepticon booty video. Marvel Rainbow Unicorn Lunchbox. I did not watch any of the tournaments and stuff like that. I should have gone and done that a little bit just to see like all the terrain, because I know that they paint up a bunch of really super cool terrain. Didn't get to say hi at Adepticon, but I hope you enjoyed and didn't get COVID. I didn't get COVID, but I got a cold, a pretty bad one. I haven't had a cold in like 2+ years. This one is a real pain in the butt. But hopefully it's on its way out. 40 millimeters seems too big. Again, for heroes, like superheroes, it makes sense, but I don't know, I've been thinking about it. Like, there's benefits to it. From what I understand, the way it's been explained to me is that the 40 millimeter size scale also coincides specifically with a specific model train scale. I don't remember if it's O or N or something like that. But then the benefit is that you can use modern buildings that are designed for that particular scale of model train, and then use that as your terrain as well in the game, which is a benefit. Because again, superheroes shouldn't generally be fighting over like ruined, like gothic buildings like your Space Marines and stuff do, but they would be fighting over, like convenience stores and whatever, that kind of stuff. So, it makes sense that way. But like I said, also the folks over at Atomic Mass have also produced a whole bunch of cool terrain. So that if you don't want to go to the, your train shop because you're nervous about it or whatever, you can just go to your game store and buy a bunch of their terrain as well, which works out just fine. Um, 28 to 32 millimeter is good. A lot of the Middle Earth strategy game minis are 25 to 28, and the eyes are tricky. 32 makes eyes much easier. I just don't paint eyes. I just throw a bunch of dark wash in there, and then I'm like, boom, there you go. Not a hobby question, but can I ask which camera you use for streaming? The quality always looks so good. This one? This camera here is a Lumix Panasonic G7. So it's a mirrorless camera. It's got a 25 millimeter 1.7 lens on it. And is connected via HDMI to a what the hell is it called? Blackmagic ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini. I used to use a Elgato Cam Link, but it all of a sudden just folks who've been watching for a long time remember when the camera would just go and freeze, and then I'd have to unplug it, plug it back in again during the stream. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that Cam Link, because now I use it downstairs in the basement for when I'm streaming on Twitch, and it works fine and has worked fine for years, knock on wood. But yeah, so yeah, this is a Panasonic Lumix G7 with it's the equivalent of a 50 millimeter lens, but it's a 25 millimeter lens because Micro Four Thirds doubles the millimeter thing. There you go. O scale. N is like 10 millimeter. Oh, we don't want that. Okay, so 40 millimeter is close enough to O scale. Got it. Okay. Was any War Machine being played at Adepticon? A lot of my local shops are getting rid of it. I think I'm 90% sure yes, because I did bump into my friend Travis Marg, who is he's big into privateer press stuff. Like, he doesn't work for them specifically, but he was a press ganger for years and years and years. And I bumped into him in the elevator, and I'm pretty sure he was holding onto a bunch of privateer stuff. So I'm sure that he was probably there playing. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that they did definitely do that. They had like the middle room, like, so it's this giant, huge expo space that they can separate with those kind of like modular walls that are kind of like sliding along from the ceiling down. And on one side was definitely a bunch of Fantasy Flight games adjacent, you know, Asmodee, whatever. There was definitely Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff on one side, and then over here was all 40K and Age of Sigmar stuff. No, Age of Sigmar was another ballroom. 40K was in this, so, you know, it was Expo in the middle, some stuff over here, some stuff over there. There's another ballroom over there that was all Age of Sigmar. They had live streams running all over the place and stuff like that from Games Workshop for the most part. But it was really interesting. You know, there's a lot of people doing all kinds of cool stuff. How is Terrain Crate? I've been close to pulling the trigger on a bunch of it. I haven't opened the big new box that I bought, which has got like ruined village walls and a bunch of ruined village effluvia. So I don't know about that. But the other stuff that I've messed with, I've always thought it's pretty cool, but it's not like super crazy high detail, but it's also scatter terrain. It's not, you know, it shouldn't be super crazy high detail. It's something to hide behind so you don't get shot as much. You know what I mean? The good old cam link, unplug and replug. Those were the days. Indeed, indeed. Camera link needed a change of scenery or just elevation. Need to be in the basement, I guess. Loved your Friday video, and especially that the interviews looked like they were on film, not video. Was it shot on a slower frame rate? Looked great. Whoops, clunked the mic there. So I shot the videos, the interviews that were on Friday's video, not with the normal video that I shoot, the normal camera that I shoot my normal Friday videos with, which is another Panasonic. It's a Panasonic GH5. Also with a 50 millimeter or a 25 millimeter 1.7 lens. I shot those interviews with a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K, which is I was going to say it's a more expensive camera, but it's technically not. It's about the same cost as the GH5 was. But I'm using more of a cinema lens as opposed to just a standard micro four thirds lens. It's not a super expensive cinema lens, but it's a Rokinon. It was like a 35 millimeter, and then there was a Metabones adapter. It's a whole bunch of stuff, but that stuff is shot. It was shot still at normal 24 frames per second, like I do pretty much everything. But it is definitely, like, it is a fancier camera. It's got a lot more dynamic range and all that kind of stuff. It shoots in a very flat profile, and then you have to kind of tweak it in editing to make, because if you look at the video, like it comes out of the camera, like nothing is black. Everything is like kind of flat and weird looking, and then you tweak it all, and then you get better. It's a whole editing thing. I don't use that camera too frequently on myself when I'm doing my normal Friday videos because it has a tendency to. The issue is that there's only two ways to shoot that camera. There's something called Blackmagic RAW, which is a type of format, and the other one is ProRes, ProRes is designed by Apple originally, and I didn't used to be able to edit in ProRes, but relatively recently, the editing software I use, which is on the PC, which is called Vegas Pro, can now edit ProRes. So all of a sudden now I don't have to like take the ProRes video and convert it to something that my editing software can use. My editing software can now read it natively, which actually worked out great. So that's good. Now, if people would have watched the video, that would have been super cool too. It has just recently hit 10,000 views, which is, it's a bit behind. I understand it's long and all that kind of stuff, but I kind of thought it was going to do a little better, but so we'll see. But yeah, so I switch around back and forth between a lot of different things, but I appreciate that you like the look of it. I like shooting with that camera. It is a bit more of a hassle. And at this point, the question is whether it's worth the hassle to take it to Adepticon and then, you know, all that kind of stuff. Generally people, and I keep doing it and I don't know why, but people don't watch videos too much that come from conventions. I've found, at least in my stuff. Like I said, that last time that I did that video where I talked to the different painters and asked them all the same questions, back in 2017. This was basically an expansion on that video, and I thought it would do better. I don't know if it was too long or there were too many painters or what, but it's done meh. So that's how it works. Of the reveals, what is your favorite model? Mine is the Beer Pig from the Norse Blood Bowl team. I actually left halfway through the presentation on Wednesday night. Like, they weren't going to talk about Warcry or anything else that I was super interested in, so I watched the Necromunda stuff. The terrain for Necromunda is very cool, and those guys riding the giant bugs, those guys are pretty cool. Everything else that they kind of showed off, I was like, eh. And then I thought to myself, you know, because I didn't have my badge yet, because there had been a humongous line. So I thought to myself, you know, maybe now is the time to go get my badge because everybody else is in here. So I left, and then I went and got my badge, and we didn't have to wait in line at all, which was great. So yeah, that's kind of, I also knew everything was going to be on Warhammer Community anyway, and I was like, so I just waited and looked at stuff later on. Yeah, I would say that the Necromunda Ash Waste terrain, I think, was very, very interesting, and I like the look of that. I kind of hope they sell it separately, but I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for your video on speed paints. After watching it, I knew how I was painting my Lizardman Blood Bowl team, and it saved me days of time. Well, good to hear. I'm glad to hear that it helped. Unfortunately, they didn't have any of the big mega boxes or whatever, you know, because there's the starter box of speed paints, and then there's like all the colors box of speed paints. And they did not have the big mega box of speed paints at Adepticon because evidently the truck that was carrying it to Adepticon got in an accident, and I don't know if it was just held up, or someone said that the truck was like, there was literally speed paints all over the highway, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what somebody had said. So they did not have it. There was a bunch of things that happened that way. Like Adepticon themselves ordered dice, you know, special Adepticon dice that didn't get to Adepticon until Monday, which is after Adepticon. So yeah, that happened. Everything is shipping slowly these days and everything. So I totally get it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of how that works right now. Let's see. Filming in RAW is okay, but I'm too lazy for the extra step. Yeah, no, I totally understand what you mean. Squats, of all things, would have loved a really alien faction besides Tyranids. Well, again, I think it's a situation of them looking at it going, what's going to make the most money? So I think they thought, if we bring back squats, people will dig that. It'll be a nostalgia vibe and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah. Bob says, I'll be watching the Friday vid again. Really good footnotes from the pros. I was sad that Vince didn't win a demon. Yeah, me too. Honestly, most of the folks that I know who had entered, like my local friends and stuff like that, or even not necessarily local, but friends that I know, very few did. Like Sam was the only person that I know that did, that I'm, you know, friends with and stuff like that. Excuse me. Because Scott didn't. I think he got a finalist pin. That's the thing. Most of the folks that I know that entered got at least a finalist pin on something or a couple of different things. But then Sam was the only person that got. Sam won 2 bronzes and a silver from the Golden Demon. But unfortunately, you know, like Miniac and Ninjon and Vince and just other people that I know like that. Yeah, it was kind of a bummer. So, I mean, to some degree, it makes sense. This is the first one in 2 years. So, like, I know a lot of folks who were like, had stuff ready to go for 2020, you know, and then it didn't happen. So they held on to it and kept painting and then had stuff ready for 2021. And then that didn't happen. And they kept going, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's kind of a thing that, I think just there was so much stuff and so much of it had been pent up for so long that there was a very stiff competition. It was a very difficult competition. Now, hopefully next year will be, because it'll just be, you know, roughly 365 days until the next event like that. And from what I've been hearing, they're going to have more Golden Demons back here in America again. I don't know at what convention, but evidently they're going to, this is not Like, I don't know if it's going to happen between now and next year's Adepticon, but they were saying that there's going to be not just this one event in America that's going to have a golden demon in it. So that'll be interesting to see as well, too. It'll help spread things around a little bit. So that'd be great. Hello from Iowa. Hello. Sam was always going to get a demon. You can't paint that good and not take something home. I mean, yeah, he did well, and I was glad. He did not think he was going to win anything, so I was glad to see that he did. But yeah, it was a very tough competition this year, for sure. Do you win money for the Golden Demon? I don't think so. No, I don't believe so. Back in the day when it was the Crystal Brush, then that was a money thing. Like, basically, if you were best in show for Crystal Brush, I think it was 10 grand. It was like a lot of money. And I think that, like, you also won. There was also like maybe a second place and a third place for best in show or something like that. And it was like 10 grand, 5 grand, 2 grand, something like that. But yeah, I don't think you do that for the Golden Demon. Love the interview video, and it was a real treat to meet you in person. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But why is it unfortunate? Other people won. Are we saying that they're not worth it? I mean, I don't know those people, so probably not. I'm kidding. But I want my friends to win stuff, and so that's why, I was sad that they did not, do as well as they would have hoped to have done. I've recently discovered palette cleanser figures, something that you can hang out easily with 4 to 6 colors to unwind after a deep detailed figure like AdMac. Anyone else do this? There are times when I'll switch to like, oh, I'm going to work on terrain now. For me, sometimes that's a palette cleanser, I guess. Yeah. Maybe break up the interview videos so each video is just one artist. Ooh, gosh, that would be a lot of them then. And then that would be a lot of videos in a row that people wouldn't watch. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I think the first time I did it, I had 7 people. This time I had 9. So maybe it was too many people. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it was a longer video. It was like 40 minutes, so I get that. Good afternoon from Ireland. How you doing? Also, Golden Demon is more about making the best marketing material, not the best paint job. That is, I think, to some degree true. There's things I like about Golden Demon and things I don't. So a thing that I like about Golden Demon is that you have to use Games Workshop miniatures. Now, that's not to say that I'm super, super crazy pro Games Workshop. That's not the case. I like Games Workshop. They do some good stuff. Don't get me wrong. They make some things that I don't like as well. But when you have that, I don't want to say limitation, but you have that requirement that you have to use these models. You have to use our models. The thing that was happening with Crystal Brush over the last several years, back when they were doing it, 2019 was the last Crystal Brush. The big winner every year was always some sort of completely scratch-built diorama or who knows what that was very frequently built by a team of people and then painted by one person. So you have this just amazing, like completely scratch-built thing. So anybody who wanted to sit down and just like paint a miniature, like a gaming miniature, and enter it, there was no chance you would win almost, because you were going up against these amazing contraptions that were built and these dioramas and all this stuff and everything like that. In this situation, sure, there's a diorama category and things like that, but the diorama has to be made out of models, for the most part, that are, Games Workshop models. They do have an open competition. And the thing that won gold in open was a Mephiston that was completely scratch built, because GW doesn't make a Mephiston that's like 6 inches tall, or whatever. But it still looked just like Mephiston. It was like, I looked at it and was like, oh yeah, it's Mephiston. But I like the, I don't want to say a limitation, but the requirement that we all need to be on the same page as we have to use these particular models from this company. And you can use any model from that company, but you're not just going to go and get a team to scratch build you some amazing thing and then paint it. So that I like. The downside is that I think that you're right. They are looking for something that looks like their marketing material, Now, there are a couple that won, like 40K Vehicle Gold was won by John Marigoda. I'm probably mispronouncing that. He was one of the guys that I interviewed, and his crazy dreadnought thing, it's some sort of Forge World dreadnought, and it is just covered in grunge, just really grungy, super grungy, and very grimdark that way. And it's one of the few things in that entire competition that was like that, but they gave that one the gold. But for the most part, they're just basically looking for, we need this to look like box art, but perfect, like better than the box art that we do. That's what they're looking for, and that's why you see that skink winning the Slayer sword, in my opinion. So, but yeah, so that is the ups and downs, I think, of Golden Demon as far as that's concerned. I heard the next Golden Demon is going to be in autumn. I wonder where. I don't think they've announced it yet. That's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing the field of painting competition at Gen Con. Can we expect to see your field of friends down there in Indy? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, Sam has gone to Gen Con in the past for that. I don't know if he's planning on going this year. Vince will probably enter stuff because he likes to go to Gen Con all the time, so I'm sure he'll enter some stuff. I don't know about John or Scott or Tom or any of those guys. I'm not sure about that. Love the vid. It was my first time seeing James Wapple's face. Well, that's true, yeah, because he doesn't ever have a face cam on during his Twitch streams. Terrain is a great palette cleanser, and you can tie it to your latest figure painting project. Sure. I'm looking forward to next year's Adepticon and meet some streamers I have met from the hobby. Yeah, that's the thing that's also very cool about places like Adepticon, is that you can, not only is it, you're seeing all kinds of amazing products, and you're seeing, huge tournaments and all kinds of amazing paint jobs and stuff like that, like Golden Demon and whatnot. And there's other competitions as well. There's the Creature Casters got their Resin Creature, whatever they call their competition. I know some folks that did quite well in that as well. And I think there were a couple different painting competitions going on, but the two big ones, I think, in my opinion, are the Creature Caster one and the Golden Demon, of course. But you can also bump into or talk to a lot of, people from YouTube, Twitch, etc., which is also cool because a lot of those folks end up there as well. I usually jump between sci-fi and fantasy, and that's good enough for me. The Gnome Army is watching me as I work on Battletech. See, yeah, that can also be a palette cleanser too. That's a good point. I like the crystal brush for it would be for all game systems. Yeah, I mean, there's a benefit to that too. I kind of wish someone would make a that's a tough one. I would like to see somebody make a competition where you had to use gaming miniatures that were already produced and you couldn't scratch build anything. That's just me personally, though. It's a dumb limitation, but it's a limitation where I'd like, because I'm, again, a tabletop painter, so I want stuff that's going to go on the tabletop. I want stuff that you're going to use for gaming, not just, like technically everything that you see except for the open category to some degree at the Golden Demon are things that you could, if you wanted to, put them on the tabletop. I mean, obviously the dioramas and stuff like that are a little tough to move around the tabletop, but, well, Games Workshop's making a lot of their own dioramas these days anyway, like the that St. Catherine thing and the OCR Bone Reaper, like, move around. It's like, some of the bigger models are becoming dioramas almost. So, yeah, but there was very little, especially stuff that won or placed very high at Crystal Brush, that was something that you would use in the tabletop to play a game with. So, yeah. I don't really want to think about how much I have spent on these hobbies in the last 30 years. Got a big pike of stuff to keep me building and painting for 2 lifetimes already. Yeah, that is an issue. That's true. I always find that when I join a paint competition, all the other artists are 10 times better. And then when I decide not to join the competition, the armies all look terribly easy to compete with. I don't know. That could be just a thing. I don't know. Went to a swap meet recently. We'll say a lot of people have a lot of what is called collections of shame. Got some good deals. Yeah, I mean, that can happen too. That was the one downside, though, about Adepticon, was that where the Golden Demon like area was up on the second floor, that's where in the past they used to have what's known as generally referred to as the Bits Bazaar. So the Bits guy, the Bits seller downstairs, he was open 24 hours a day or whatever. But in past years, they've also had like an area where you'd like pay $1 and then they would give you a little area on a table and then you could bring stuff from home that you were trying to sell and then sell it. And so people would walk around and it was almost like a rummage sale or a garage sale or a yard sale or a whatever they call them overseas, boot sale. Anyway, but they didn't do that this year because that whole area where they would usually do it was taken up by Golden Demon. So that's kind of a bummer because I always used to really enjoy looking at stuff. Now, literally 2019, when you walked around in that area, I think they only do it on Friday and Saturday nights. It was just about almost all completely privateer press. Like everyone was just dumping all their War Machine and Horde stuff, which was kind of sad. But yeah. And then there was one guy who was like selling I think an Imperial Knight that was poorly painted, but it was put together. And I was like, well, maybe I'll buy it and fix it up, make a video out of it, something like that. That'd be kind of interesting. And then I asked him how much it was, and then he said market price. I'm like, what does that mean? And then he like went online, and then he told me some crazy number, and I'm like, no, thank you. I don't know market price. Like it's perch. If you live in Wisconsin, you know what I mean by that. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know. It was very strange. So anyway, but they weren't doing that anymore, unfortunately, because of the space. P3 had their Grandmaster competition this year. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, because usually the P3 Grandmaster takes place at Gen Con, but this year they had it at Adepticon. That's right. I did not see... Did I see anything from that, though? I don't know if I did. I walked by the booth, the Privateer Press booth. I remember seeing that. Isn't Gaslands technically sci-fi? Yes. Yeah, I would say so, yes. Finally made it to a live stream. I'm switching between sci-fi and Gaslands. Well, see, there you go. Sam's Age of Sigmar large model that took bronze looks like a graphic novel cover. However, the Warhammer community image makes it look flat. I mean, photos are always tough in those situations. I mean, you know, I've seen plenty of models of my own that I'm like, I like this paint job. And I take a picture of it and I'm like, I don't like this paint job. What did I do wrong? It's taking the photo very frequently. It's very difficult to bring that idea across. You know what I mean? So I think that I think I saw there was a Golden Demon in the UK at Warhammer World. Yeah, no, the Golden Demon has been only in the UK for years, I believe. It used to be there was a Golden Demon in... Was there multiple gold? Yeah, I think back in the day, there were 3 games days in America. There was one in like Baltimore, one in like LA, and one in Chicago. And games days was like a one-day competition, not a competition, one-day like convention. And you could go and look at all kinds of GW stuff, and you could learn how to build terrain, and there was things going on and blah, blah, blah. Maybe some tournaments, I'm not sure. But there was always a Golden Demon at each one of those. Well, then over time, they were like, yeah, that's too expensive. So then they dialed it down so that in America, there was only one games day, and it was in Chicago. And then eventually they were like, well, why don't we move it to Memphis or wherever their U.S. headquarters is? And then they did that. And then in 2013, that was the last one. They stopped doing games days in America. And my friend Tom Ailes won the Slayer Sword that year in America. But they were still doing them in the UK, and they've done them every year since. So Vince has gone to the UK to compete in Golden Demons there and has brought home trophies before. So, but that was the only place to be able to get do a Golden Demon for quite some time until this year they decided to, well, actually they were going to bring it back in 2020, but you know, pandemic. And now this year was finally the Golden Demon back here again. But it's still also, there's one, at least one, if not 2 of them in the UK. And it sounds like they're going to be trying to do another one here in America as well, sometime in the fall, which makes sense. So, you know, having more of them just helps, I think, overall. Car boot sale, that's what it is. Or at cons, they still have a bring and buy. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe you and Vince and a few other friends can create and sponsor your own competition. I wouldn't do that. Because I got to be perfectly honest, I don't really like competition. So it wouldn't be a thing I'd be interested in doing. Fishmonger techniques at the miniature market. And indeed. I always thought Gaslands was post-apocalyptic. Yeah, but it's doesn't it take place on Mars or something like that? Or Mars is involved in it in some fashion. So it's sci-fi post-apocalyptic? I don't know. That's a good question. Swap meet was the same. A lot of people, what they brought, it was like never seen at a garage sale. That's pretty cool. Did you check out Rivenstone at the 40K Hall? Sorry if I missed you mention it. I didn't. I did not get a chance to do a demo. I think I walked by when they were doing demos and I looked at it, but that's as far as that went. So far, like I said, I own one of the models. The folks from Seocast gave me a cool skeleton guy with like double daggers wearing a cloak, and that's from Rivenstone, from what I understand. So that's a pretty cool model. I'm going to paint it on Twitch, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah. What happened to War Machine and Hordes that everyone is getting rid of their models? I don't know. I mean, I know the 3rd edition came out and people were thinking it was going to change things and it didn't, or I don't know. I don't really know a ton about it, so I'm not the person to ask, unfortunately. But I do know that generally its trajectory is downwards, unfortunately, it seems. But I know that Riot Quest, which is a new game that they've produced that's kind of based off of War Machine and Hordes, but is a different game, that's been relatively popular for them. And then I know that they also made a sci-fi version kind of War Machine called Warcaster, something like that. That did well at Kickstarter. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. I'm continually amazed at my own work, but only after I bring it out of this dingy, poorly lit cave into daylight. Always a weird experience. Yeah, lighting is a good idea. Good lighting is a good idea. I think the original Games Day US was only in Baltimore for 3 days, and then it went to 3 one-day game days, and then went back to 1. That could be. I just remember there used to be a Baltimore, and LA, and a Chicago one for a while. They were one-day things, and then eventually they were like, whoops, that's too expensive. This is in the days when, like, this is in the days of 7th edition 40K, when and before Age of Sigmar. And so, you know, GW was in kind of a little bit of a rough spot there. You know, their sales were down and things were like, meh. And so that's when they were like dialing back on a lot of stuff and even closing some stores, I guess, or whatever. And then, yeah, that's when they reduced Games Day to just Chicago, and then eventually they moved it to Memphis because it was easier than doing it in Chicago. And then eventually, like I said, 2013 was the last one here in the United States. Went to the LA Games Day a few times, huge tournaments, which I didn't care about. Went to go see the Golden Demon entries, get the limited Golden Demon Mini, and then Forge World stuff without shipping from the UK. Yeah, that was a good reason to go. I can understand that. Riot Quest is a lot of fun, and their monster fighting game. Monster Apocalypse or whatever. See, technically Monster Apocalypse is being produced by Mythic, I believe. Right? Like, Mythic has licensed it. I think Mythic is now actually doing that, but... Speaking of old/new games, Chronopia is trying to make a comeback via Kickstarter. I've not heard of Chronopia. I have to assume it has something to do with time, though. To be fair, Gasland's lore is pretty thin, but that's fine. Let's put your own stamp on how you play. Yeah, I don't mind thin lore. I have no problem with it. I kind of prefer it, honestly. Too much lore, I think, is kind of pigeonholes you sometimes, I think, personally. Let's see here. Bummer about War Machine. It is one of the only miniature games I actually like. Yeah, I don't know what that is about. I'm not sure how that's where that's going on there. Have you played Don't Look Back yet? I haven't. I think that Game 4 Matt bought it at Adepticon. I think he picked up a copy of it at Adepticon, and I think he got some models and maybe. Well, he definitely got a terrain piece for it. He's from a Blacksite Studios. It's like a big haunted mansion kind of thing that he's been building. We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, which is like the only day I was at work last week. But yeah, so that's I've not played it. I've watched a little bit of a battle report one time, I think, about it on. It was either on Ash Barker's channel, or it was on Blacksite Studios Twitch. It was one of the two, but I did watch a battle report one time. Even games with long established lore, I always put into my own setting. After all, it's mine. Exactly. Will the new squats work with your new space game with Vince? And have you decided to call it Rain on Mars? I have not, because we've not. No, it's not called Rain on Mars. It doesn't happen on Mars. I mean, technically, yeah, sure. I mean, basically, any kind of sci-fi stuff I think is going to work in this situation. Mythic is doing their board game version, but Privateer Press is still doing Monpok as a paintable minis game. They just put out some new stuff for it. Oh, I did not know that. Huh, interesting. Chronopia was a fantasy game by the creators of Warzone. Really? Huh. It's kind of why I stay away from games tied to movies or television shows. Too restrictive. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the lore very frequently for Games Workshop stuff can be way too restrictive because there's so much of it out there. There's so many novels and books and all that kind of stuff that if you want to decide, oh, we're going to do it this way, that, I mean, you can still obviously do that. Certainly. No one's going to, well, technically no one's going to stop you. That being said, you may get people who are like, well, that's not the way it is, you know, like at the shop or whatever, or, you know, God forbid you post anything online and then someone tells you how you're doing it wrong. Yeah, that kind of thing generally can be troublesome. Whereas if there's not much lore, then you can be like, well, it doesn't say that I can't do that. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And I'm fine with that. So painting competitions are a big turnoff for me, especially since my entry was stolen at one. Well, that's no fun. They should generally, I mean, there's something to be said. I guess if someone stole your piece, they must have really liked it. You know what I mean? So I guess that's a good thing, kind of. But it is a bummer, obviously, to get your work stolen. And the painting competition should have protected that stuff a little bit better. That is crazy, yeah. Is Sam the best painter on Earth? I mean, I like his work a whole bunch. So in my opinion, I'm going to say yes. But then so is Vince, and so is, you know, John and Scott and Tom and all the other guys that I hang out with and ladies or whatever. All of them are the best painters on Earth. I think that, again, I don't like competition. I want everybody to win. So, yeah. Let's see here. Space Hobos could be a game. Yeah, maybe. Space Murder Hobos. Like, people will refer to... Some people refer to D&D groups. Like, here's your group of... I've heard this referred to as before, is that, you know, you have these people who don't seem to have homes. They're just adventurers who go out and, you know, liberate the countryside from the goblins or the kobolds or the whatevers. And a lot of people refer to that group of people as just murder hobos because they go out and they murder people and they don't seem to have a home. And you know, that's a way to look at your general D&D group. And if you just put them into space, now they're space murder hobos, which is not a game that we're making. So but if you want to make that game, you should definitely do that. Although I would definitely double check to see if Murder Hobos has been trademarked or something like that before you do that. Just FYI. Have you done a battle report for Vince and your game? Yeah, we filmed it. I have started to edit it. That's as far as I've gotten. I've been gone and sick for the last, at this point now, 3 weeks. But yes, but I'm looking forward to hopefully, yeah, being able to output that. I always struggle with lore in 40K where everything else is just dire existence. Yeah, no, I get that too. Mantic seems to have found a nice middle ground with Kings of War 3rd Edition regarding plenty of lore but very little restriction on how units can and should look. I think that's important. I think you got to give the agency to the people who are actually playing the game. I think that's very important to do. Has there been a Halo miniature game? Like a couple. They've not worked well. There was a Halo, like, Clicks type game that was put out by WizKids, which didn't, well, it sold for a bit and then not. And then there was a Halo, like, Fleet Battles spaceship style game miniatures that also didn't seem to work out that well, unfortunately. So that's a bummer. throat. Kobolds? Did someone say kobolds? I did. Space Truckers. Now that, I think, is a game and or possibly a movie. For some reason, I think that Dennis Hopper was in that movie. Anyway. Murder Hobo specifically refers to RPG players that solve all problems by killing them. Well, I mean, you know, if it works, it works. Dead Zone from Mantic has squats, or Forge Fathers. You don't have to wait for GW. I own some of the Forge Fathers. The thing that bothers me about the Forge Fathers is that they have armored beards. You know what I mean? Like their helmets have like the beards built in. And I'm like, I don't know. Like that's the one thing. And it'll be interesting to see if there are, you know, helmeted versions of these GW squats or not. But like these guys look, and this is going to sound stupid, but that guy looks a little bit more realistic to me. Now, I've also seen some people online who are like, I mean, admittedly, he's got individual little toesies in his little boots there, but whatever. I've also had some people online going, like, guy doesn't look very small. Like, he doesn't look like he's actually that squat. Well, but if you look at the base, you see how thick the base is? In my mind, that's probably a 25 millimeter base. Now, if they put, what they should have done, in my opinion, is they should have put a picture of this guy next to a Primaris, and then we would be like, oh, okay, I see, he's considerably, and that would make sense, but they didn't do that. But, you know, maybe eventually they will. But if you look at how thick that base is, I have a suspicion that these guys are considerably shorter than even like guardsmen or whatever. At least that's the hope. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I like the look of them. I just, yeah, I don't know. The Forge Fathers are almost a little too like Norse kind of stylized in their armor, and I'm not. That's not an interest to me. Let's see here. Got to play a game of Warcaster for the first time. Really cool. The summoning mechanic makes sure you never get tabled. Well, that's pretty cool. Caradron Overlords. Yeah. They also have the armored beards too, which is why I've always been like, I don't know. Let's see here. I said hi to you at Adepticon. Thanks for being down to earth and a positive figure in the hobby. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope that you had a good time at Adepticon. I did. It's a lot of fun. I bought a stupid amount of the first edition of that Halo Clicks game. Still looking for a way to convert a tabletop with 3D terrain. Easy as pie. Well, there you go. Doesn't really look like a dwarf either. And the KO have armored beards. Yeah, and that's always been an issue. Like, that's why I liked... A friend of mine did a conversion on the Caradon Overlords, and he got rid of their heads and gave them all Skaven heads, which was pretty cool. I don't know why. I just liked it a lot. The new squats just look like little people, not classic squats. I'm fine with that. Like, that's... I like the fact that they don't look crazy like GW. Like, they don't look super, super crazy stylized over the top. They're not covered in skulls. They're not like, I don't know. I want something that looks, I want something sculpted by Games Workshop that looks a little bit more normal. I don't know what the hell I even mean by saying that, but I do. It's in here somewhere. And it's just, I would like them, you know what I mean? Like the cleanliness and the like really super tight, well done design with great details, but not crazy. I don't know. It's hard to, you know, like you know, you see like Harlequins are very well designed models, but who in the world would, like, they're space clowns. What's going on? How did we get here? You know what I mean? Like, this is not, I don't know. I'm having a hard time explaining it. I would hope the gun is Primaris bolter sized. Well, then that would be way too big. They should have smaller guns if they're smaller people. It just makes sense. Something I have learned from the art and design world that also happens in the mini world is that the well-known makers are not necessarily the best, just the best advertised. Oh yeah, no, marketing is super huge. Absolutely. There are companies out there that do really, really good models. I would say that Weird Games from the Malifaux and stuff like that, like they do models that are technically designed, I think, just every bit as well as Games Workshop stuff. But Games Workshop has got a lot of marketing / lore behind it that makes people like super interested in what they're doing. So, you know what I mean? Have you ever thought about doing a painting collaboration with Vince, Sam, Scott, or John, etc.? I have big meetings of the minds of miniature painting. I am not anywhere near the same league as those four gentlemen. I am a tabletop painter at best, and those four folks can do obviously tabletop painting, but they're also, you know, display painters, and I'm not a display painter, so I don't know that would work out. Do you play Age of Sigmar? I haven't for a long time. I did play Age of Sigmar quite a bit in first edition and a bit in second edition, but I've not played any third edition. It's gotten too, I don't know, it's gotten too much for me, I think. Also, I'm just not interested in army style games anymore. I want skirmish games, which is why I play Warcry instead and use mostly Age of Sigmar models there. I've gotten, oh gosh, how many painted Warcries do I have at this point? Warcry warbands do I have at this point? 6, 7, I think. Maybe once the Skaven group that I'm finishing on Twitch gets done, it's 7. If you're interested, by the way, I generally paint on Twitch here on Monday nights and Friday in the mornings, though I missed this week Friday because my nose would not stop running the entire time because of the cold that I have. But I did paint on Monday, and I plan on painting again tomorrow, Monday, at 7 p.m. Central. And I'll continue working on the Skaven that I am doing for Warcry. And then after that will come probably Khorne, Bloodbound, but it might be some Snarlfangs and some the other ones. Whatever those Gits guys are. Zarbag's Gits from Underworlds. I might be putting 2 of those groups together for Warcry because of the new Toma Champions 2021. Chaotic Painting. It was great meeting you at Adepticon. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. They look like plausibly realistic sci-fi, not crazy cartoon sci-fi. I think that's a part of it. I think they look more realistic than nearly any other models that I've seen from Games Workshop. And I know that sounds weird, but it, like, if these guys were like in a movie and they were running around a spaceship doing spaceship stuff or whatever and that kind of stuff, I'd be like, yep, that makes sense. Whereas nearly every other model you see in Games Workshop, except for maybe the Guard, you'd be like, why does their armor look like that? Why are they wearing that big pointy hat? You know, stuff like that. Why are they covered in so many spikes? That kind of thing. I really thought that GW would make the squats like the Caradon Overlords. I was pleasantly surprised to see them doing something unexpected, but just as you watched, they will put in cybernetic beards. I mean, someone's going to have a cybernetic beard. The fact that I don't is amazing. Not a fan of space clowns. I never hear much about them, though. In fact, I never see them in stores, at least in my neck of the woods. There were some folks that played them quite a bit back in the day locally. And I know that they're very powerful. I think they're very powerful in Kill Team currently. I'm not sure, though. We should have a vote on making Uncle Adam the head Forge Father in a 3D print. Your beard deserves the respect. See, this is, I've trimmed it way back and it needs to be trimmed again, so it's not it's not a crazy beard. Uncle Adam is the brains of the minigame. No time for painting. Oh, now that's not the truth at all. Vince is really the brains of the minigame as far as like rules and all that kind of stuff. Like yeah. I'm the guy who does the marketing and the art direction and the layout and the, you know, visual design and comes up with the logo, that kind of stuff. Rain in Hell was my idea kind of initially, and I came to Vince and said, hey, would you be interested in working on this? The new game that we're working on is based off of an idea that Vince has had for a long time, that he was kicking around the idea of turning into an RPG. So this is kind of his baby as far as that's concerned. And then the next game that we do next year is based off of an idea that I've got, and I will maybe alternate. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's kind of how that works, is generally he does the majority of the heavy lifting in figuring out the rules and the math and all that kind of stuff. And then we work with some other people to just try to break it and figure out what all the testing needs to get done and all that stuff. And then once it's all nailed down, then it is time for me to do the heavy lifting and do all the layout and all that kind of stuff. So that's already started. But I will be getting busier over the next couple of months because we're looking at launching this next game in the summer. So that's where that's at. Squats are just humans from a gravity-heavy world, right? I believe that's the case. Yeah, that's generally the case. When someone gets robbed, they should have prepared better for not getting robbed. I mean, in a perfect world, people wouldn't rob anybody, but if I was running a paint competition, I would like they had a security guard at the Golden Demon, when it was at like nighttime and stuff like that. Otherwise, they had somebody sitting there pretty much all the time, even during the day. I don't think it was a security guard during the day. It might have been a GW employee during the day, but they had definitely a security guard at night. In a perfect world, nobody would rob anybody, obviously, but we Lord knows don't live in one of those. So I would definitely try to figure out a way to not have that happen. Hey, Zambies. You want a cybernetic beard? I'm not sure if that's the case. New squats look like they're going to fill the niche I have wanted from 40k, which is an alternative to the Imperium that fractured off and got more reasonable tech. Yeah, that could be kind of cool too, to see things be more reasonable. Yeah. Adepticon Hall sometime, or Showtime when? It might be the video that comes out this Friday. I have to figure out when to film it. I did bring home a lot of stuff. So there will, in theory, probably be this Friday. Given your no game is dead thesis, when Kill Team 2 came out, why did you switch to Warcry and not just continue with Kill Team 1? I think Warcry became a bit of a flavor that I enjoyed a little bit more, and it also gave me a chance to paint a bunch of fantasy models. So it was a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth when they changed it to Kill Team 2, and I was just like, ugh, I do not like what happened. Of my 8 painted Warcries. Of my 8 painted kill teams, only 2 of them are legal anymore, and so I was just like, I think it was so like, I don't want to say over the top. It was just such a really strong kind of change that it just threw me off completely from Kill Team in general. And I could have kept playing Kill Team with people that I could convince to still play the old version and not the new version, which is, not the hardest thing in the world. But I think it was just a situation that it put such a bad taste in my mouth that I was like, I'm going to paint some fantasy stuff now. And then I started doing Warcry stuff. And then I really enjoy Warcry. Honestly, I think I enjoy it even a little bit more, even though Kill Team 2021 is based off of Warcry. I still prefer Warcry because it is simpler than Kill Team 2021. Kill Team 2021 started based off of Warcry and then tacked a bunch of extra stuff onto it. And I think that the Warcry stuff by itself is fun, and I kind of prefer that right now, as far as between the two of them. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's what it is. It was what's the word I'm looking for? It was abrupt. It was so of an abrupt change, I think, that, complete 90-degree angle on the way that the game worked, that it just threw me off completely and I wasn't interested. So when they update Warcry, which I'm pretty sure they will soon, Sam and I have a bet about what's going to happen this summer or not. When they do it, man, I hope that they don't make it so abrupt. I hope that they make a change that, what would be awesome is if it was backwards compatible. If you didn't have to start over and get a compendium and all that junk. If they did that, if they made it so that we didn't need a compendium, boy, would that make me happy. Ugh. So anyway, yeah, let's hope. But that's kind of that's what it is there. I want to take the new squats and put squid heads on them. That would be pretty cool. I could see that. Yeah. Feel like GW should have put the effort and the money into fixing known problems than making a new army with more rules. It depends on what's going to make them more money. That's just the way it works. They are a big old multi-billion-dollar corporation, so whatever's going to make them more money is what they're going to do. Let's see here. Genestealer cult neophytes are pretty close to realism. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Generally not a fan of the 40k aesthetic. I've got some fantastic Puppets War Primaris proxies I am putting together for Kill Team. Puppets War Primaris proxies is a lot of fun to say, by the way. But I like that the squat design a lot. Feels less excessive. Yeah, I can understand that. What do you think of Warhammer Underworlds? I don't really play it anymore. I did for a while. It's, I think, still a pretty great gateway game between... board gaming and wargaming, but it is, I think it's a great kind of gateway game there. That being said, there are other ones that are starting to crop up that I'm also interested in trying out. Steamforge has a game called God Tier, which I really want to kind of try out a little bit more. One of the benefits to God Tier is that you're not just like, here is your warband, this is your warband. They're giving you the option to kind of swap things around and sort of construct a little bit better, which might lean it a little bit more into miniature game territory and a little bit away from board game territory. So there's that, because it's, it's giving you the agency, but sometimes when you're first learning, it's better to just go, look, here's your warband, don't mess with it. You know what I mean? And they've done that to some degree with the new version of Warcry, or the new play style of Warcry, which I think they call Rivals or something like that. I don't remember what it's called, but it is basically, here's your deck. You can't deck build. You can still play the other version, or the original version, where you can deck build to your heart's contentment or whatever. But there's now a new version kind of play style, kind of like, how in Magic, there's different types of play styles. There's, Commander and Modern and the other ones. I don't know a lot about Magic. But when you do that, when it's a situation where you don't have to deck build, if you don't want to, you can just follow this. That's cool. And if you don't have to like build your army, that's also got a benefit. But sometimes it's also nice to be able to be like, this is a gateway game, but I still get to tweak the army a little bit if I want to. So having all kinds of different options, I think, is very cool. What do you think about Turnip 28? I'm very interested in it. I wish it was just slightly smaller in scope. I wish that there was Turnip 28 Skirmish. You know what I mean? But I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to try to build a couple small, very small armies, but it's still a few more models that I'm interested in playing with. That being said, I love the aesthetic. I love the concepts behind it. So yeah, I'm gonna probably end up building and playing The Last War first, which is Last War is it's a game that's made by the same person who made Forbidden Psalm, which I've talked about a little bit. Forbidden Psalm is licensed from the Morkborg RPG sort of thing. Anyway, look up Forbidden Psalm on YouTube, and you'll find Ash Barker doing battle reports and stuff like that. It's a very interesting game. And The Last War is using the same game engine by the same person, but it is weird World War I. So that is more in my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse. I'm interested in going down that road. So I've actually picked up some models recently that I'm going to be able to use for that game, and I'm thinking about ways to build a 2 foot by 2 foot, like World War I. Why am I shaking this glass back and forth? There's still coffee in it. Anyway, I'm going to build a board for it because it's only 2 foot by 2 foot. So, but yeah, got coffee on my PAX badge for going to PAX. That's another event I'm going to next month. Actually, well, this month. Oh Jesus, it's April, isn't it? Yeah, PAX in Boston, PAX East. So if you're going to be at PAX East, I will be there as well. Probably smelling a little bit of coffee. And I'm mainly going because I'm gonna hopefully get to play some games with Tycho, aka Jerry, from the you know the Penny Arcade folks, and also Kiko, and I got to hang out actually at both Gamma and at Adepticon with Eric, the notorious EJB. If you've ever watched them stream Acquisitions Intoxicated and a lot of the other tabletop gaming streams and stuff like that, Eric J. Benson is there. He was at Adepticon. We played, we had some cocktails at that GW thing I mentioned on Thursday night, and then we played the Kill Team laser tag he and I did. And then afterwards we hung out. There's a giant squirrel hanging off our bird feeder. Sorry, it just distracted me. Anyway, we hung out in my hotel room and had some bourbon, and it was a good time. So yeah, that's the main reason I'm going to PAX East, and just to check it out. I've never been to Boston before, but I've also never been to PAX East. I've been to the PAX, the one in Seattle. I was in like 2008, but things have changed so much, I'm sure. Is Game 4 dead, or when is it coming back? We are hoping to try to bring it back this year. We're working on trying to figure out exactly the best way to bring it back, and we're working towards that. But we've also been doing lots and lots of work with game companies doing web and mobile stuff for them as well. So the company has not, I want to say transitioned, but has moved into doing more of that as well. But we're also looking at bringing back regular old Game 4 as well. Sludge to me is Turnip 28 at a better scale of game. Fewer dudes, more meaningful conversions. See, I thought Sludge was more dudes. I don't know. I thought there was too many. I thought there was a lot more dudes in Sludge, but I could be wrong. I just watched like a battle report one time, and I thought there was a lot more models. But how you doing? 2+ stuff. Have you managed to play Marvel Crisis Protocol? No. I've gotten to play it and just started painting the Ultron from the starter set. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I want to. I just have not been able to get a chance to. Skirnup 28. Ooh, there you go. How much iteration went into Rain in Hell? I guess it depends on what you mean by iteration. Like, we knew roughly what we were looking for. We built a pretty solid design document to start with, which is always important with these things. You always want to sit down and say, this is what we want to do. And you make the terms specific, but not too into the weeds, which I know doesn't make a lot of sense, but you know, it's really important to build a good design document and then take every idea that you have from then on in the game and bounce it off that design document and say, does this fit? Does this make sense? Because if you do something, you add some weird mechanic that you're like, oh, this is a super cool mechanic, it'll be really great, but it has nothing to do with your initial intentions. Sometimes that's a problem. Now, maybe your initial intentions were not as complete as you'd hoped, but you know, sometimes it's just the fact that you're like, oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, okay. That us adding this entire weird extra bit here doesn't make any sense and doesn't, you know, add to the game in a way that we, you know, at the time it seemed like a good idea, but actually maybe not. So yeah, it's important to do that. Have a good design document. But as far as iteration, I mean, it was a lot of small changes and like, well, let's do, maybe this doesn't work, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And it went through, most of that came from testing, you know. Once you do the play testing, you're like, actually, this is not as smart of an idea as we thought, or actually, this needs to be changed because it's not working properly, or something like that. He's still out there. I would yell at him, but he can't hear me. I'm interested in the Warcry rule system, but I wish I could use the models I already own. Do you have any Age of Sigmar? Well, first of all, you could. You'd be proxying, I suppose. But if you're like, well, I only have sci-fi minis, well, then that's, you know. But if you have fantasy minis, like stuff from Age of Sigmar and such, like there's tons of excuse me, I swallowed funny. You can use Age of Sigmar models in Warcry. That's all of my warbands are that way, actually. You can also use the other stuff too. You can use the models that they made specifically for Warcry. The Iron Golems, the Corvus Cabal, the Unmade. the other ones, Scions of the Flame. There's a whole bunch of them, as it turns out, but they also have rules for you to be able to use Skaven and Stormcast and Nurgle dudes or whatever, you know. Acorn Warfare in Snarling Badger Studios' backyard. I mean, it's technically the side yard, and he's not eating, or he's eating bird feed instead of, he's being a real jerk about it too now. I mean, I guess he needs to eat, whatever. What is the strange 1950s robot behind you? That is that is Nick Ramondo. It's actually my wife's cello case. She's a musician, and that's her cello. And then the eyes there were sent from the other side of the planet, from VJ Morph, and now the googly eyes are on there. And if you follow me on Twitter, yes, if you follow me on Twitter, last week, well, not I don't know, back during Adepticon, I was gifted by the amazing the noob painter, gifted, he has 3D sculpted on the computer, and then 3D printed and then painted and then given to me a Nick Ramondo miniature, which was lovely. And Nick is wearing a fez and is standing on a tactical rock, which is also very important. And yeah, it's a great looking thing. So check that out on Twitter. Yeah, it's so anyway, that's what that is back there. I've iterated on a tabletop game so hard it looks completely different. There have been about 3 distinct games, and it feels so far. Like I said, it's important to start with like a fence post. Like, this is what I'm aiming towards. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want, and writing up that document, because then as you iterate, you don't iterate yourself into a different game too much. You know what I mean? So. Let's see here. I feel sorry for my opponent who will face this freshly finished Star of Clan assault mechs. Nice. The symbols in Warcry put me off. The symbols are tough. I kind of hope they fix that. That would be great too, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, the symbols, I mean, so many of them are skulls or variations on skulls, and you're like, you know what I mean? Have you checked out Ash Barker's Steel Rift game? There are rules for mech combat in Battletech scale. The rules seem a lot more streamlined than mech combat for me to get back into 15mm. I saw it at the Death Ray Designs booth. So he's working with the folks from Death Ray Designs. They make all kinds of stuff, but are mainly known for making really good MDF terrain. But he's working with them, and they're going to be publishing it. They had a beta version of it there at Adepticon. They had models that you could buy that were resin 3D printed. They, they had terrain that you could buy as well that was MDF, you know, like the right scale. The models were cool. I liked them because they were sort of pleasantly chunky. Like, whoever sculpted them, I mean, they weren't like chibi, you know, but they were a little chibi. Like, they were like, you know what I mean? Like, they were like miniature little mechs and stuff like that, but nobody was like skinny. Everything was kind of thick, which kind of makes sense. You want, like, tanks are thick, you know what I mean? Like, that's, except for the gun part, which is generally kind of skinny to some degree, but the tanks are thick, you know? And so that kind of made sense. But yeah, I did not pick it up, and I don't know that they might have been doing demos, but I didn't see anything. But yeah, that game is still in progress from what I understand, but I know that Ash also posted, he did some stuff about it recently on his channel too. I noticed that too. Do you think single player tabletop game is possible? If so, any ideas? Oh yeah, no, we do. I mean, we made a single player / co-op expansion for Reign in Hell. I mean, our next game is going to have single player and co-op built into it. There's plenty of versions of that out there. Yeah. Catching the end of this from Alexandria. Been working on warbands for Space Weirdos. Nice. Noob Painter is a legend. Indeed. Indeed. Are dice pools overtaking classic roles as a mechanic? I have no idea. That's a good question. The dream in life is to be paired in a mini swap with Noob. Nice. Yeah. Can you start your own paint and hobby line with Nick Raimondo as the mascot? No, I don't think so. I don't. The squirrel left. I don't want to do that. I like working with monuments. Honestly, I really like the brushes, which is and those should be coming back into stock in the next couple of weeks. So I'll let you folks know if you're interested. But I have my own small line of brushes through Monument Hobbies. They're their normal pro synthetics, but they've got the black handles with the red tips on them, and I designed the stamp that goes on the shaft of the brush and all that stuff. But you get a 00, a 2, and a 4 size in the tube, they're my favorite brushes. That's why I call them Uncle Adam's favorite brushes. And we sold out of the first run, and then they ordered a second run and a third run right after that. So the second run should be showing up from Germany, hopefully, like I said, in the next couple of weeks. And then the third run will be coming shortly after that. So that'll be great. I am, but yeah, I don't want to start my own. Like, I don't think I have that. I certainly don't have that kind of time. For Lord knows. Dungeoneers and Rangers of Shadowdeep are solo, apparently. Yeah, Rangers of Shadowdeep can be played solo. I have not heard of Dungeoneers, I don't think. 5 Parsecs and 5 Leagues also have solo rules. Yeah, a lot of games are starting to do that, honestly. Anyone else remember a war game set on Mars during the Victorian period? Was it like a John Carter kind of situation, or I haven't heard of that. I just learned that Tales from the Loop series is also an RPG. Yeah, I think the RPG came out before the TV thing did on, what was that, on Amazon Prime? Is that what the Tales from the Loop? My wife and I watched it. It was not bad. Let's see. I've really warmed up to Monument. I've been using their synthetics as of late, and I really enjoy them. I'll definitely check out another weapon rack via your affiliate. Indeed. Yeah, Silver Bayonet, I think, can also do solo as well. Space 1888? Space 1889? Something like that. That sounds about right. Although I thought that was an RPG. Maybe that was a miniatures game. I'm not sure. Are any of the Kolinsky brushes from Russia that we should boycott? I've never used any Sable brushes, so I don't know anything about that. My brushes from Monument are made in Germany, so seemingly good. And they're synthetic anyway, so yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, no, it was really great to hang out with Jason and Jen from Monument. Like I said, on Thursday night at Adepticon, we went out to a Brazilian steakhouse place or whatever, which was nice. And also had Sam and Vince and John, Ninjon, with us. And we had a lovely meal and ate a lot of meat. And then got back in time for a GW presentation thing that we got invited to. Let's see. Well, Vince didn't go on Thursday night, but then on Friday night there was another GW thing aimed towards the people who were more into Age of Sigmar and stuff like that. So he went to that one. So I think they split it up. Like the one that we went to was more for sci-fi type stuff, that they talked about, and then I think that the one that Vince went to on the next night was more Age of Sigmar stuff. So it was a good time. I was glad that to be able to do that stuff and whatnot. What other stuff did I do? I don't know. I bought some stuff. I bought some terrain. Like I mentioned earlier, I had some terrain crate stuff that I got, and also I picked up some stuff from Lasercraft Miniatures, some 3D printed terrain. That as soon as it gets nice out, I'm going to attack with some filler primer outside, some spray filler primer. it's filament printed 3D stuff. So, you know, like FDM is what they call it. But instead of the resin printed stuff, you know, with the goop and then the light and all that stuff, this is the machine and the big spool of plastic. But like really dialed in. Like a lot of times you look at like 3D printed terrain and you're like, all right, well, you know, you can see the lines like real bad. And as people get better and better at it and whatnot, they make those lines disappear more and more. You know, you still want to hit them even still with filler primer, and things that have a more organic shape, I find you lose that kind of striation more than if it's a real sci-fi flat side of a building kind of a thing. But I don't know what they're doing over there at Lasercraft, but I was like, at first I was like, oh, these are cool, but poured resin. And he's like, no, that's 3D printed. And I'm like, what? And I was looking, I'm like, oh yeah, wow, that is, because otherwise it would have been crazy heavy because they're big chunks. So I got some stuff from them, and like I said, some stuff from Mantic, and Bad Squiddo Games. They were not there specifically because they're based out of the UK, and you know Annie's way over there in the UK. But there's a company in America, might be in Wisconsin, I don't know. They're called Badger Games, which you know they've been around for a while, and they're a store, but they go to a lot of different conventions and sell. You know, they're like a retailer, and they sell a lot of like hard to find weird stuff. And one of the things that they sell that I enjoy quite a bit is the stuff from Bad Squiddo Games. And Bad Squiddo has a whole area of like embellishments and accoutrement, if you will, for terrain. So I bought a bunch of like resin pieces that when you make a piece of terrain, you can add these to the like around the edges or stuff like that, like little skull piles or like some sort of almost like a standing stone that's got like a skeleton chained to it, you know, and things like that. They're embellishments that make your terrain look cooler, but that you don't then have to sit there and go, well, now I have to go find a little plastic skeleton and I have to glue him into here and find some chain and do all that stuff. It's just already done, you know. So yeah, I just bought a bunch of different like resin pieces that'll be like, when I build this terrain, I'll just be like, stick this over here. And it's just an extra little thing that just makes the terrain look cooler. And so, yeah, I was glad to see, because I've never been, like I said, I've never been to England, so I don't get to go to the shows that Annie generally gets to go to, but it was very cool to see that so much of her stuff and all the other stuff that Badger sells as well. Yeah, definitely. It's cool. Let's see. Uncle Adam, like your line of brushes from Monument, would you consider doing a package of your favorite paints aimed at the beginner from Monument? I mean, I think we technically talked about that early on, Jason and I. I mean, really, I would tell you to buy, if you're looking for beginner paints or the paints that I use the most often, I would probably tell you to go white. They're bold titanium white, olive flesh, light umber, and dark umber. Honestly, those 4 colors I use in just about everything. So, but yeah. Remember playing and getting it at War Games West in Albuquerque, New Mexico. As I remember, it was a lot of fun. Just recently, an old miniatures case I found with some miniatures. That's kind of cool. Badger Games carries so much from different game-related companies. It's painful to my wallet to shop them online. Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's just so nice to be able to do it like at a convention. I've seen them at what other conventions have I seen them at? Nexus Game Fair years ago. I think that they were there. I bumped into them. Which is a convention, a small game convention in the Milwaukee area that's coming back now because, you know, after COVID. A couple other small little conventions I've bumped into them at, and they're very nice people, and I like buying stuff from them. I've bought some North Star miniature figures, like plastics. Like I had already purchased the Stargrave ones directly from them, from North Star overseas when they first announced them, but I know I bought some of the extra like Frostgrave plastics that they've done in the past from Badger as well. So there you go. Annie is ridiculously nice. She does seem to. I've never met her in person, but we were on the Andy and Rem show together at least once, and she's a very nice lady. Thanks for all you do. Get well. Well, let's hope so. Yes. Nice to have talked to you at the con. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, it is time for me to go. I'm going to go and probably blow my nose and cough and stuff like that, which I've been kind of trying to hold back. But thanks for everybody coming by. It looks like, according to the poll, which will end now, it looks like 80% of the folks are interested in new squats and 20% say nay, but that's fine. Oh, wait, or 79% to 20%. So there's a 1% that's math. I don't know. But there you go. I've seen Badger games at Origins. Maybe that's where I saw them as well. Yeah, I'm not going to Origins this year, but there you go. So I want to say again, like I said, thank you for folks for coming by, and I hope that you have a good week or 2 weeks until we see you again. I hope that you don't have a cold. They're not fun. So it's been a while since I've had one, and it's going away, I think. So yeah, we'll have another video out on Friday. I'll be streaming tomorrow night. I'll be streaming on Friday as well as everything goes well, and we'll keep seeing things going on. And if you're at PAX East in Boston sometime later this month, the 21st through whatever, I'll be there as well. So maybe I'll see you as well, but we'll be wearing masks there from what I understand. So you just this much, just look for this much, and then you'll hopefully figure it out. But absolutely, thank you very much for everybody coming by. My nose is very itchy, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.